Welcome to Warhammer War Scroll Review. In this kit compare, we're going to be taking a look at two Seraphon units, Salamanders and Razordons.
Warscrolls Review.
Salamanders and Razordons are similar in a lot of ways, both in aesthetic design and playstyle. The question is, which of these handled beasts is better? Salamanders or Razordons, which should you buy? The two models' base stats are quite similar. They're both moving 8 inches, and defensively, both have Bravery 10 and 3 wounds per model. The Razordon is a bit more durable with its 4-up save, while the Salamanders only have a 5-up. The main draw of these models isn't their speed or defense though, it is their offensive abilities, and more specifically, their ranged weapons. Salamanders have a single shot each. Hits and wounds on 3s, Ren 2 damage D6. This weapon is really powerful and almost eliminates the protection from even heavily armored units. And a decent damage roll means it can kill support characters or monstrous cavalry with a single shot. The downside of this weapon is its short, 8-inch range, but it can be increased to 12 inches by having skink handlers nearby. Like the old Warhammer Fantasy battles, these two models are still joined at the hip, but now they are not compulsory. Not only do Salamanders have a pretty effective ranged weapon profile, the Stream of Fire has a special rule. If the weapon deals any damage to a target, roll a die at the end of the shooting phase, and on a 4-up, they're dealt D3 mortal wounds. Now over to the Razordons, we have a decent ranged weapon as well, the Volley of Spikes. This weapon gives the Razordon 2d6 attacks at 12-inch range. These attacks are hitting on 3s but wounding on 4s. They don't have a rend and are damage 1. Well, they do have a rend value, but only when they're within 6 inches of their target. This range is a bit too close for comfort for our little reptilian friends, but it's still an option. These models too get a buff from having skink handlers nearby, in this case granting them reroll to hit rolls of 1. This isn't quite as imperative as the Salamander's buff, but helpful all the same. When charged, a Razordon unit rolls a die, and on a 4-up, they can make a shooting attack at the charging unit. Free guild handlers will tell you that the chance to stand and shoot is absolutely brutal. Yeah, it's only half the time, but that chance may deter the opponent from charging in with something just to hold the Razordons up. After doing the math, the two ranged weapons are very similar in damage output on average. But targets with a 5-up save or better will likely be more heavily damaged by the Salamander's fire than the Razordon spikes. While Razordons will be dealing more damage to targets with no save or a 6-up save. The difference really isn't that large, but it is worth noting. When you throw in the extra rend when within 6 inches of the Razordon, they start beating out the Salamanders in averages. Average die rolls is the way to go to Math Hammer, but they don't always deliver. A good point for the Razordons is there are more dice being rolled, so it will be a bit less random. Salamanders can be thrown off by slightly below average rolling, whereas the Razordons are likely to even themselves out. Both lizards rely heavily on one of their rolls. For Salamanders it is their damage roll, and Razordons it's their attack roll. Razordons get 2d6 attacks though, where the Salamanders have 1d6 damage, again averaging out a bit better. In melee, the models diverge quite a bit. They both have 3 attacks that wound on 3s with damage 1, but the Salamanders hit on 3s to the Razordon's 4s, and the Salamanders have Ren 1. This means Salamanders are actually pretty rough in combat too, while the Razordons should be avoiding melee at all costs. The models are worth 40 points each, and can go in units of up to 4. Each unit of these models will take up an artillery spot. Be sure to screen them from your skinks or what have you to keep them safe. Under a Seraphon allegiance, both models get cranked up in versatility. The battle trait Lords in Space and Time is very potent at getting these relatively short-range beasts close enough to shoot. These models are also extremely easy to summon, at the moment only costing 6 conjuration points. Razordons can be deployed wherever they are needed, within the specifications for either summoning or Lords of Space and Time. The Salamanders, on the other hand, are somewhat limited on where they can be placed through these methods. Their initial range is only 8 inches, so they can't drop in by themselves and still shoot. They will need skink handlers nearby to increase their range to 12 inches. With the Slan command trait, Great Rememberer, a Seraphon player may redeploy 2 units via Lords of Space and Time. Maybe a unit of Salamanders and their Skink Handlers? Alternatively, you could teleport 2 units of Salamanders close enough that the Skink Handlers can run to meet them. Maybe use a command point for at the double for the Skink Handlers. This goes for summoning too. If you don't have a nearby Skink Handler unit, summon one along with the Salamanders. Razordons like to be near Skink Handlers when shooting, but they don't depend on it. With a Slan, an Astrolith Bear, and some average rolling, you should be able to put out 2 Salamanders or Razordons a turn. Saving points for a bigger dump can be useful too, but remember these models will all be in units of 1, which can be harder to keep in range of auras, especially the Skink Handlers. But which type of artillery beast will you choose? For summoning, it depends on what you want to shoot that turn. As previously stated, for more heavily armored targets, bring in the Salamanders, but for chaff, the Razordons should do well. The decision may be a bit more complicated than that though. If you plan to charge in, the Salamanders will give a bigger advantage. On another note, if you're sure they will survive until next turn, Razordons will eke out a bit more damage if you can get them within 6 inches of the target, for that extra rend. Also remember, the chance to stand and shoot with the Razordons when summoning multiple individual units will be a bit better, because the Seraphon will be rolling more dice to ensure some Razordons get to fire. When using either method to deploy your models 9 inches away from the enemy, there are quite a few ways to increase the likelihood of making this charge. Between the Slan's Constellation and Chronomatic Cogs, the models summoned or teleported in could be +3 to charge, making it fairly likely they will make it in. With the Salamanders, a solid charge could clean up what's left after shooting the target. Astrolith Bears are a perfect way to increase the effectiveness of either beast. In addition to adding more conjuration points to summon more lizards, the Astrolith allows reroll to hit rolls for nearby Seraphon. Getting this reroll to hit is absolutely pivotal to Salamanders. It's still a great boost for Razordons, but they can get that reroll 1s to hit with the Skink Handlers. I can't do a Seraphon War Scroll review without mentioning the Skink Priest. The model would allow nearby Seraphon to reroll run, charge, and save rolls. Their ability happens in the hero phase, so it wouldn't affect units about to be summoned. But in any other case, this would be a helpful addition to make the monsters a bit more durable. It would have a much greater effect on the Razordons though, on account of their 4-up save. If you're starting the models on the board, they can be included in a War Scroll battalion. The Heaven's Watch Star Host would increase their abilities the most. It's quite large and expensive, but if you're bringing the models already, it is likely worth it. A Skink Starseer, as well as a Skink Priest, Star Priest, or Troglodyte. And 3 to 6 units including Razordons or Salamanders. In this battalion, the models would be able to reroll 1s to hit and wound against a specific target. Certainly a helpful rule, but somewhat redundant and expensive with the likely already included Astrolith Bear. If you weren't taking a summoning army with the bear, this could be pretty potent at increasing damage. The Thunderquake Star Host is another great battalion, including an Engine of the Gods or Troglodon, as well as 2 units of either Bastiladon or Stegodons, and a Razordon or Salamander unit. The main role here would grant either reroll to hit or wound rolls. This rule is chosen in the charge phase and will last until it is changed. This will be giving a unit of 4 Razordons or Salamanders reroll to hit and wounds when combined with the Astrolith Bear. Very brutal. Unfortunately, like I said, only 1 Razordon or Salamander unit will fit in this battalion. Neither of these models fit too well in other armies because their main uses come through Lords of Space and Time and summoning. Regarding current tournament meta, Nighthaunt are pretty common, making the rend on Salamanders that much less useful. Next, we will have to break down this review point for point. Salamanders can do mortal wounds, while Razordons can stand and shoot. Salamanders have rend -2, while Razordons don't rely as heavily on support units. Salamanders can deal insane damage, while Razordons have more attacks that balance out bad rolling. Salamanders are decent in combat too, while the Razordons are more durable. The winner of this kit compare with a 4 out of 5 are the Razordons. Now, I have to admit I went into this War Scroll review firmly on Team Salamander, but through thinking it all out and doing a bit more math, the Razordons just are more reliable. And actually, my doubles army I just took to Nova Open included 2 units of 4 Salamanders. A week before the event, I wanted to switch to Razordons, but didn't have enough painted up, so I had to use the 5 I had for summoning. The main problem with the Salamanders was relying so heavily on that damage roll. I never rolled that great, so they didn't do much damage. Plus, we fought a little bit of Nighthaunt. Which unit do you prefer? Which War Scrolls would you like to see compared or reviewed? Leave your thoughts, suggestions, and questions in the comments below, and thanks for watching.